I am going through a gouache era in my life. Those of you who know me for quite some time now obviously know that I tend to switch mediums and subjects quite often, but this is not the case the last couple of months or so. I've stuck with gouache for all this time and I don't see this era coming to an end anytime soon. I may be wrong, but for now I feel still excited to use gouache, and I thought it was about time I talk a little bit about that, about why I like gouache so much and why you may like it too, why you may want to try it and see for yourself if it is something that you'd like to stick with. Of course, all art mediums have positives and negatives, and we all have different tastes, and we choose our supplies for completely different reasons. But this video is all about gouache and why I enjoy it so much, and the positive aspects of it that I think it has. First of all, though, what is gouache? For those of you who haven't heard of it or are not familiar with it, gouache is opaque watercolor. That's the simplest way to put it. It stands somewhere in between acrylics and watercolors, and it takes some aspects of both of these mediums. It can be used with a lot of water, similar to watercolor, but it can also be used straight out from the tube, mixed with white, and look a little bit more like acrylics. Unlike acrylics, it can be reactivated on your palette and on your paper. But unlike watercolors, it is opaque and it is usually mixed with white in order to lighten the color instead of just watering it down. This is a very fast explanation. It would require a whole different video to go deeply into what exactly is gouache and how to use it, but for now I think that's enough to keep going with the positive aspects of it. First and foremost, the reason why I started enjoying gouache so much and why I started exploring it more was because it was so easy to set up. It is a water-soluble medium, so you don't need anything fancy. You just need a cup of water, a very simple palette and some paper, and you're ready to go. And at the time when I was very much procrastinating with every single simple reason and I was finding it hard to sit down and paint, the fact that gouache was making it so easy on me was very important. Other than that, since it can be reactivated on your palette, it also makes it very much easier if you find that life gets in the way often. If you start a painting or a sketch and you don't know if you'll have enough time to finish it, gouache makes it easier on you because you can just leave it as it is, come back later, reactivate your paints and keep going. Obviously, it's not the only medium that can do that, but it is one of the benefits of gouache compared to some other mediums. Now, as I just mentioned, gouache is mainly used on paper, on watercolor paper. So this also makes it a very flexible medium. You can use it for simple sketches in your watercolor sketchbook, or you can cut out quality paper and do finished paintings with gouache. This flexibility and the ability to use the same medium both for studies and sketches and for finished paintings is another one of the qualities that make gouache so unique to me. Unlike oils, for example, that need special preparation and special surfaces to work on and that you can't really easily use in a sketchbook, it is very possible, and I have made videos about that, but it is not something that you just sit down and do. The difference with gouache, the ability that I can use it like that, was very unique and special to me. While I'm on this subject of the surface you're going to use for gouache and the watercolor paper, I would like to also mention that gouache is not a very demanding medium. Both for paper and for brushes, while better quality supplies will probably lead to better results, gouache is not really that demanding and the quality of the supplies is not really that important. A simple watercolor paper will do the job for gouache. It doesn't have to be high quality paper, the same way it is for watercolors. Watercolors are indeed very demanding both for paper and for brushes, while gouache is not. You can use any brushes and any paper, watercolor paper, but any quality paper for gouache and it will do the job. Since you're not using that much water most of the time and you can choose not to, You don't really have to have high standards for your supplies, especially when you're just sketching and trying out new things. Which is also very important because you can just get a simple sketchbook, you don't have to spend a bunch of money, and you can do some studies and sketches without worrying too much about the results not being good enough. Next up is a quality that I find extremely important with every medium that I work with, and I know that it is not as important for other artists, but for me it is essential in order to enjoy a medium that I work with. And that is that I like my mediums to be forgiving. There are mediums out there, looking at watercolors again, that once you start with your painting, you don't really have much choice to switch route and make new decisions. But with gouache, you can always change your mind and you can correct your mistakes and you can go back and go over all the layers in order to create something new. For me, that is very important. I am not one that will plan a painting from the beginning to finish and not change my mind on the way, and I am not one to restart a painting if it doesn't work out the way I want it. I like having my options and I like being able to correct mistakes and change my mind on the way. With gouache, that is very possible. It's not that it won't show if you change your mind way too many times, but it is very possible to fix mistakes and change the route of your painting while you're working at it. You can cover previous layers, you can cover small mistakes, and also you can choose whether you want to work from light to dark or from dark to light. And that, for me, is also very important. My mind tends to work better when I'm working from dark to light. I think it all makes more sense to me when I'm working from dark to light, and I'm not saying that I never work from light to dark, but having the ability to choose and the option to choose separately for each painting makes gouache very good for me. One more thing that I like about gouache so much is the fact that it is so multifaceted. You can choose to use a lot of water or even skip white completely and make gouache behave very similarly to watercolors. But you can also choose to use the tiniest amount of water and white to lighten up your colors and make it behave a lot like acrylics instead. And obviously you can combine both the techniques on the same painting, which creates a lot of cool effects. So the fact that I can choose the way I would work for each painting separately, and the fact that I can have different effects and techniques in the same painting makes gouache very mysterious and exciting for me. I think that it has so much to explore and try and experiment with that it has never-ending possibilities on how you want to go about the subject you want to paint and how many choices you have with techniques and different choices that you can make throughout your painting. This makes it a very exciting medium and a not boring medium at all, at least for me. Now, lastly, I want to mention something that gouache made possible for me that is probably not true for everyone, but it was for me. As a beginner, I had a hard time toning down my colors. I think a lot of beginners have the same issue with using too bright colors and not having complete control over value and saturation and ending up with a result that is very saturated and very weird with the color choices. And I know I'm not the only one, but I couldn't figure out the way to make all of this work. I was looking into color theory, I was trying to make different choices, but I was finding it hard to make the correct choices. But with gouache, because of the way it works, it somehow made it a lot easier for me to control that aspect of my art and become better at it. Because the dark colors of gouache dry lighter and the light colors dry darker, it somehow neutralizes itself, even if you don't intend it to do it. Which is very useful for beginners or for people who had the same issue with me, because it makes it so much easier to tone down your colors, saturation, and your contrast in your painting, even if you don't really try to do that. I know this sounds counterproductive, but it is a good start to see different results through a medium that makes it easier on you to make different choices and end up with colors that can be very bright and very intense, but also at the same time the medium itself makes it so much easier to neutralize your painting, to reduce the contrast and make your colors look a little bit more desaturated. Maybe I'm talking about myself here. I don't know if I do think it is a problem for a lot of artists. I don't know how popular of a problem it is, but for me, gouache helped me a lot to find control with my color, saturation and contrast. And with that, I think my list is finished. I've listed everything I wanted to say about gouache, and I hope I'm not missing something important here, but I couldn't think of anything else that I would like to mention. I would be curious to hear your thoughts though on whether you find gouache interesting or not, or even if you have something negative to say about it. I would happily discuss it, and I would be interested to hear your opinions in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please leave a thumbs up before you go and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Remember to hit the bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video, and I hope to see you on the next one. Until then, be safe, be happy, and keep going for your dreams. Bye!